Let's start her off.
Yeah.
Welcome to Fifefer Island, the podcast where we talk about game dev and catch up with cool people. I'm your host, Chris Madden. Today, we have a guest, very special guest, Gui Martins, from America, but has been living in Japan since 2012. We had the pleasure of meeting through a mutual friend, Mel, and we met in Tokyo, in the streets of Tokyo, right?
Yep, yeah. That's right. Shinjuku, I think.
Shinjuku, yeah. And this is back in 2017?
Yeah.
About then, yeah.
You had come with your brother, I think.
All right, yeah. Alex came to visit, started in Japan and did Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, and before going back to Korea to show him Korea for a week. Well, can you give us a little update on yourself and what you've been working on?
I'd always had a passion for game development. Specifically, I love playing. I don't play like a lot of AAA games. I play a lot of indie stuff just because I think that's where a lot of, there's nothing wrong with AAA games. I have all the respect in the world, but you need a team of 500 people. Rough estimate there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to need an army of engineers, of QA people, of et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of the games, because of that, it becomes a product at that point versus something that is kind of
has the heart, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because I grew up with like the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy and stuff, and you can read a lot of like those war stories of engineers from those time, and it sounds a lot more, of like a group of individuals just getting together to make something creative versus a product. And again, not that a product is bad. And so around 2018 or so, I got kind of sick of web development for doing it for so long, and I want to actually get my toes wet with game development, just try to dip into the pool a little bit. And so I asked a couple of recruiters, and while my background is in C, C++, like that what would have lended itself to game development, I don't have a background in it because my degree is in electrical engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering. There's a lot of hardware. It's easier to say that. I was really lucky that I met there's a group of actors called Tokyo Cowboys.
Tokyo Cowboys,
here in Japan.
Right?
Yeah, it's actually started by a guy, Chris McCollums Christopher McCollum is his name. I can give you the link afterwards, but he's a wonderful gentleman. He's been acting on several television stations here in Japan, and he started his own indie kind of like TV show, I guess, on Amazon Prime called the Benza. And I had been friends with him before that, but he and I kind of spoke. He's really into Dragon Quest. And so we were kind of talking. He was like, I kind of want, like a Dragon Quest-esque game about my TV show. And, we had talked back and forth. I'm a fan of the TV show. And so I said, yeah, let's if all the stars align, let's go ahead and do it. And COVID was actually a great time for that. Because I was just sitting around at home. He was just sitting around at home. It's hard to act when there's, at the peak of the pandemic. And so we would meet on Zoom while both of us are still in Tokyo, though. And we would just hash out this game. And I think both he and I had worked about 800 or plus hours or so on it before we finally released our version 1. And I'm sure we can talk about that afterwards. I'm sure there's... Yes, this is the gentleman.
I wanted to show the audience here. Christopher McCombs, long, sandy blonde hair, very good-looking fellow. And so does he live in Japan and doing this acting in Japan?
Yes. He's been a model and actor in Japan for 10 plus years.
And so you're working on it's a popular TV series in Japan. And you're working on an RPG Maker game, an RPG game based on the characters in the show.
Yes.
And does the plot lines follow similarly in the?
Yes.
Or are they tangents from the show?
So there's three. There's 2 seasons of the show, and then one kind of like side story. And the game is kind of fit in between that side story and in season 2.
Okay.
But he's essentially the writer, by the way, to the whole
writer
thing
too.
as
So
well.
you guys have been working close together. Do you have a website or anything to show for the current project, or is it not yet in that phase?
Oh no, absolutely. I think if you Google the Benza RPG, it should pop up. Oh, and the Benza Amazon Prime is the TV show itself.
Oh, you got it on Steam already?
Yep. So we're on Steam, iOS, and Android.
Oh my God, that's awesome. October 1st, 2020. So it's been released for almost a year now.
Yes. Our initial release was a bit bare bones, but I think it's kind of fleshed out at this point. I would say our latest update really kind of gave it its own pair of legs to stand on.
Cool. So you were the main programmer behind this.
Yes.
Oh, so cool.
And I have to give Tokyo Cowboys the biggest thing, thank you in the world for keeping me in the game development scene. Because I generally do have like a passion for it. I think one of the biggest things that happened to me was getting our game not reviewed, but at least looked at by some of the bigger Japanese magazines here in Tokyo.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar with Dengeki.
No, not.
But yeah, it was a lot of like childhood stuff kind of came to.
So was it always free to play?
Yes. So we want to keep the game 100% free to play. We will have, at least for the foreseeable future, what I can say is we won't have the main story from start to finish will be free.
Okay. Great. So it's great that it's an ongoing process too, and it's an ongoing project that you are working on, and you're updating after the release as well.
Yes, we're slowly working on more as well. So this isn't the end of it as well, but it's more of like a companion to the TV show than anything else. Hence why we want it to be free. We want people to think of it as like an interim series to the TV show.
Well, maybe you can give me some advice on advertising, because that's where my job with Fifefer Island has really heavily switched to. And I'm relatively new to the game development industry, and it's crazy to see how big it is. I was looking up some stats earlier. Video game industry has grown to be bigger than the sports and movie industries combined.
Yep. It's a huge market these days.
Increased 20% in 2020 alone. Game revenues did. I mean, thank the pandemic for that, I guess. $180 billion. Wow.
We used to have these same sort of conversations back in inner space because, primarily that's what our division was working with. And it's growing too. Mobile gaming is going to outpace everything soon. Yep. Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. And that's, looking at here, I got some stats on video game players in America. This is from 2021. 227 million players across all ages in the US. That's almost 1/3 or 2/3, I think. Average video game player is 31 years old. I mean, we all grew up playing video games and just never stopped. It's like,
I think that's why it's the average 30s, right? Because you and I grew up with, the Nintendo and PlayStation and all of that. And
we're the first generation to grow up with it. I mean, to other generations to an extent, but when I was teenager coming to age, that's when the first Xbox came out, and playing Nintendo 64. I mean, my first system was the original Nintendo. I saved up money in a piggy bank that you couldn't take money out unless you broke it, and I saved up like $100. My brothers and we bought the first Nintendo, And it was so great. It's just glorious, just spending so much time playing video games. And so it's interesting. And my dad as well, playing computer games all the time. Like
the same actually.
Yeah.
It's funny. Uh-huh.
And to see, like, now my dad's retired and he's trying to make this game, and I'm helping him, and we've got this product now, but now it comes time to market it. And how do you make an impact in such a crowded field? There's something, I think there's like 40,000 games released on Steam a year.
Yes, and to kind of wedge yourself in there, right? Just to make your voice heard is rough, because it's a competitive field. One thing I love about Steam, because a lot of the marketing stuff, I will have to say, is more on the Tokyo Cowboys has a lot of push behind it. Yeah, specifically Chris, right?
Well, they have the TV show, and there's probably already a lot of people advertising that. So
exactly,
easy drop to say that there's a video game.
Yeah, exactly. So in our case, a lot of things just kind of fell into place really, really neatly. However, one thing that both Chris and I learned while doing Steam is that one of the neat things you can do on Steam is you can just contact reviewers, and the reviewers will just review your game and tell you. Now, you do open yourself up there. Like some people were they were critical, and I had told, the people at Tokyo Cowboys, I'm fine with criticism as long as it's constructive. I love it. You can tell me, what you didn't like, let me know. I got a 2-star review, and I actually thought it was really fair on iOS. It was a Japanese fellow, and he had said that he wished that our game automatically changed the language settings to the language of your device. And I thought that was really fair. It's something that will take me a while, so it's not anything I'm going to get to here soon. But that is a fair criticism. A lot of other games will change their language setting based on whatever your browser is. So
that's just something that in the game that you need in the programming, you need to figure out how to do that before you update it.
Exactly. But, I love that sort of criticism. I had felt 2 stars a little harsh, because you can still change the options to Japanese. You can still play the game. However, I thought the way that it was worded, everything was great, and I welcome that sort of criticism. Just going back to Steam, though, but that actually gave us a little bit of traction on Steam. I think we spent an hour and we messaged out 20 or so reviewers, just saying like, hey, this is our game, if you want to check it out. The consistent criticism that we got is fun game. However, if you don't know the TV show, it's kind of hard to get into the video game. And that's a very fair critique. However, then it's also not for those sort of people as well. Know your audience, right? And our audience are people who like the TV show.
You need to know your demographics, like your potential niche, who you're advertising to.
Exactly.
For our game, it's become abundantly clear that it's a game that teaches economic concepts. But you can't shy away from the fact that you're taking quizzes and you're learning the jargon of Economics 101. And at first, my dad thought that it would be, so brilliantly done that it just kind of seamlessly flows into it. But we can all have grand envisions of that. And then, you start playing the game, and in the first 5 minutes, you're faced with a quiz, right? And I'm trying to lean into that. And our game is an educational game. You learn economic concepts. For people that have never learned about economics before or need a starting post, this is a great place to start. And for the age group, for high school students or even preteens and university students taking Econ 101, this game will be a good supplemental activity for them and a fun way to memorize and practice the jargon. And seeing the economic concepts play through in the gameplay as well, in the story, I think it's a complete package in that sense. And we just have to be kind of clear with what it is, that it's not an adventure RPG game. I mean, you could say it is, but then you're leaving out all the education side of it. So it's an educational RPG game.
I love where you just went with that, because so when I played your game, I had taken a couple of economics courses, but I had forgotten a lot of, like units of utility and that sort of stuff. It can just completely, after college, you don't, when I hear it, it comes back to me. But playing that game really helps solidify those concepts. And it reminded me a lot of the games I used to play as a kid. I don't know if you remember Math Blaster.
Yeah, sure.
And I had a lot of fun with those sort of games. I think that you should lean into that, lean into it being an educational game as like supplementary, in a fun way, right?
Yeah.
Supplementary learning towards economics, because I think what you just pointed to earlier, the games market is huge, but if you don't find niches, then I think you're going to be drowned.
You're going to
Your
be
voice
drowned.
will be drowned out.
Well, and also with the team, it's I've taken on the marketing manager position, but I'm also a content creator. I'm a community manager. I'm doing a lot of outreach, and it's becoming so big. It's like I need to really think and hone in on how I spend my time and figuring out what's going to be the most beneficial to actually getting players and getting interest in this game. Because it is going to be an ongoing process. We're working on episode 2 already. I'm working on episode 1, and we're going to get this game looking great. It already is looking great, but we have a few more bugs to fix before it's actually released about 3 weeks from now is my dad's goal. My dad always sets goals, and he's like, all right, we're going to make the goal. And then maybe it's going to be a week later, maybe 2 weeks later. I'm just pushing for a good release. It's nice to know that we can do updates and stuff, though. I'm hoping to garnish a good beginning interest in this, where it's like it merits returning to and fixing some of the critiques that we may get in the game.
So something that we learned at Tokyo Cowboys was exactly that, is put something out. Like take the levels, take whatever you have that is very solid and just put it out into the wild and get feedback on it. Now, again, you do open yourself up to criticism that way. How you use that criticism is crucial, though.
Yeah.
At the same time, keep updating your content, slowly push. I think that is a huge difference with game development now, is you don't want to put something out that is buggy, like for your version 1. However, you can put something out that isn't complete content yet, as in the narrative that you guys are trying, or the game that you're trying to put out. If it's not 100%, if it's like 75% done, then work on the rest of the 25% and fix the 75% while the game is already out in the wild, and you'll get feedback. Some people be like, I didn't quite like the character on this scene or something, just something minute like that.
This game mechanic wasn't really fleshed out fully. It's introduced, but I didn't know why it was introduced, kind of things like that.
And it's the internet, so you'll get a lot of weird comments too, and just ignore those and take the well thought out ones.
I mean, that's what I'm getting used to. Is there's always going to be haters. You just gotta try to be yourself, I guess, and remember why you're doing things as well.
Yes.
So one thing I definitely want to make sure to ask you, because you made your RPG Maker game, which is the same engine that we're using, and you released on iOS and Android phones. So what was that? How much of an investment is that to, like, if we were to take an RPG game that works for PC right now in the Chrome browser, but that, like you said, the mobile gaming is huge.
Yeah.
And if we can open it up to phone downloads, that's a huge market. I just wonder how much investment does that take, if you have an idea?
So from an engineering perspective, the hardest thing in the world, the very first thing, is on-screen controls. That stuff is hard. We still didn't figure out a good, like, we have an on-screen D-pad and an on-screen, like, A and B button, like confirm and cancel, and some other stuff like how to navigate menus and whatnot. It was not easy, and it's still not something that we're 100% happy with, to be really honest. We tell a lot of our users, in a lot of our press releases, we recommend people use it with a Bluetooth controller.
Okay.
Those map directly onto keyboard inputs, so RPG Maker already, takes those in. It's funny because the initial porting for our the initial port to iOS or an Android is actually really easy because RPG Maker is actually just HTML5. So it's JavaScript and HTML at that point. So you can actually into a game for mobile devices actually pretty easy.
So I'm just that takes a good, because I'm trying to envision our game on a touch screen, phone, and so you got to use your finger to do things, to move around. And you can see I've recorded this playthrough to show off our HUD display that we recently revamped, and we've got
this looks great.
4 different metrics here. We have the so we have the day and night system. It's 1 minute is 1 second. We have a health and mental energy that actually tells you the stats. We also have the utility, and so that's like your happiness meter, and the experience, and it levels up your character. My dad has in their population, reputation, and I forget the other one. I think they all kind of sound very similar. They are used in the game. They're going to be fleshed out more in the future. But we love how we can have like all this stuff just within a heads up display. So we don't have that pop-up menu anymore.
Yeah.
And
it's huge. This is great for mobile, by the way, because you can just tap with a finger, right?
Yeah, you can just completely hide these things now too, and like show off more of the screen. So this is that's the last remnants of the old menu,
original menu.
And then we have got our skills page. So 8 different skills to learn. Our map. We have the crafting area where you can use the resources that you collect during the game to craft things. We have the quest log, where this is a standard quest log. And then this tech tree, which I believe you saw in the version you played.
Yes.
Still relatively the same, but I think this is one of the coolest things. Just knowing me as like a learner and a gamer, if I were to see something like that, like a branching tech tree where I have to unlock first things to get later, it just makes me want to play the game, makes me want to figure it out.
I totally saw where you guys were going with it. I loved it.
Yeah, lots of so I'm just imagining we might have to play around with it if we have it on mobile and how you're actually touching the screen, but this makes it easier, almost, hopefully.
I didn't realize that the character was going towards mouse clicks as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so there it is.
It could totally be a finger. It could totally just be a finger.
Yeah, I would try it out. I would get because it actually, from an engineering perspective, it doesn't take long to put the initial game onto an iOS or Android device. And there's actually a lot of articles on how to do it. My only, I guess, engineering word of warning is I had a hard time releasing on Android. Actually, Android has a limit of
file size, or
you have to. So the initial app itself, I think, can be up to 150 megabytes, right? And you can download the rest of the assets. And I think the total is just like iOS. So I think 2 gigabytes off the top of my head there. So it's not that bad, but you have to engineer that. And RPG Maker doesn't lend itself very well to have the initial game and then the rest of the assets downloaded, and then you would have to have some sort of refresh or something.
The organization of it, a few extra steps for the player, possibly, or for the person that's downloading it to actually start playing.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually tried to release on iOS. We tried to release on Mac, and we were working on the Mac download. I was able to play the game on my mom's MacBook. But when we put it up to itch and downloaded it, we get this weird error message. Can't like it's in a different folder, and we tried so many things, and we're at a wall right now. And we don't know what to do.
Yes, we had these. It's funny. We actually had the same sort of issue. I think for some of the stuff, what we ended up doing was going through file by file and looking at. I think it was uppercase and lowercase is where we were really getting dinged, because if I remember correctly, Windows and Windows, systems that use DOS, right, don't care about uppercase and lowercase files. They're essentially the same. For Macs and iOS as well, they do differentiate. So, like uppercase file and lowercase file, like FILE, are completely different things. And that was confusing our system. And maybe you guys had tried that as well.
Well, no, we haven't tried that. That sounds like a new lead of a possible solution.
There's a lot of those little things. Like I would love to talk to your engineers. By the way,
I gotta get you on the phone
trade
with my
war stories.
phone with my dad, because he's taken on the whole project on his shoulders as far as the engineering side goes. we had he'd used RPG Maker before, but there was a lot of black boxes and he didn't know how a lot of stuff worked. We hired a game developer early on in the process who worked with us for like 3 months and helped establish the game a lot, and taught my dad a lot of things. But my dad just figured out a lot of things himself, where now, like within the RPG Maker engine, he knows every nook and cranny. The plugins still a little not as good at or the JavaScript, but that's why RPG Maker is great, is you don't need to know JavaScript. So
yes, I actually come from the opposite end. It's always funny when we work over Zoom, because usually how we work is exactly what we're doing right now. Is one of us will share our screen and we'll go through each little thing. But the people at Tokyo Cowboys have familiarized themselves much better with the engine itself. My background, I'm a lot more comfortable with JavaScript. So for me, it's kind of the reverse. Like looking at JavaScript is way easier. However, I will say the thing that was ultimately the most frustrating as an engineer working on the Benza RPG was the community is, and well, how do I say this?
Let's be careful here. Yeah. Are you talking about the RPG Maker forums and stuff?
Yes, but I want to be really specific. It's actually it's not that anybody is bad, rude, or anything negative. The frustrating thing is coming at it as like a professional engineer. When I go into those forums, everybody is, and this is expectedly so, they're all hobbyists. And so when I'm looking at their code, there's a lot of stuff that I get really, really frustrated, like variable names and that sort of stuff. You essentially have like a community of people who are hacking together games, and they're just dipping their toes into like, their first programming language and that sort of stuff. And JavaScript lends itself well to beginners. But when I go in there and I want to know something, like how do I loop through all of the characters? And, you Google through that and you get 10 different ways, but none of them seem to be like really best practices or anything like that. And so that has been the most frustrating thing as like an engineer, like my day job versus this. They're two, because at my day job, we have code reviews and everything is very, very, like I get told per variable name, like, we should call this something else. When I go into the RPG Maker forums, it's very much, like pieced together to make a game, which again is fine, but it has been a point of frustration with the forums. But I should speak positively about the forums as well. It's also cool that you do have so many people, just kind of coming together to find out the mysteries of JavaScript, I guess.
Yeah. I think the RPGmakerweb.com is more alive than .net. RPGmaker.net.
Yes, that's true.
RPGmaker.net. I don't get as much. There's not as much activity. Where I'm finding tons of activities on Discord. Like, it's amazing. I joined 10 different servers, game developer servers. I started with just one, like I met through the RPG Maker people, and they've been the most helpful actually in playtesting the game and giving me let me talk shop and giving me feedback, and it's really active. And then these other ones are huge, like 50,000 members. I posted some blurb about getting playtesters and just tons of replies. It's, there's so many different channels of the game development process to get feedback and talk out your troubles, which is encouraging. So and Discord has just been wonderful for our actual game dev team and the communication that we have with between us and the workflow, because you can lose a lot of time sending emails back and forth.
True. For us, and this, speaking of like slow responses and stuff, I had this, we had a couple of good interactions on Reddit, specifically,
oh, nice.
r/RPG Maker and r/Game Dev. Both of those were actually pretty good resources. A lot of really, really helpful people there.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, I've been using those forums as well. My kind of thing that I'm juggling is the marketing aspect of it, getting ready to actually email and directly contact economic departments across the country, economic institutions.
Yes. Oh, perfect.
And high school econ teachers trying to get like Facebook groups for economists, like really just the econ niche. And like, hey, I don't think any other game has done this. An RPG game that explicitly teaches economic 101 concepts.
No, I can't think of a game actually. Like let alone an RPG game. I just can't think of a game that does.
Yeah, like
economics.
Even like just a flashcard thing. I mean, there's definitely some websites that have good learning tools and stuff, but
sure.
The gamification of it, not so much.
Exactly.
I'll show you.
I think one thing, I actually have a question. Does your father have like a background in economics? Like where?
Yeah, he does.
Where did that come from?
He's a banker. He worked at TCF Bank until he was like 30. He had me when he was 22, I think, 23.
Wow.
And I remember when he had the job interview for the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, and he felt like the interview went well. And then like the next day, my parents were just so happy and celebratory because he got the job at the Federal Reserve Bank. And that's where he got most of his credentials, was working there for 15 plus years as the public relations branch. And he would go around the region giving speeches on the state of the economy, according to the Fed, kind of the Fed's mouthpiece. So he had to stick in line with the Fed policies and stuff. And he was never like a higher up kind of like making decisions like fiscal policy, but he understands the subject matter really well. And he's got the attention to detail to actually be like a coder too, and just look over finances and so stuff that I can't.
Utmost respect, man. Because when I played it, like even the verbiage was like, oh man, it's exactly the word you used. It was like gamification of my old econ, like 101 books. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah. Just going through like, oh man, that's what Udals was. Like it clicked again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
and he's giving me a little shout out by using the name of my imaginary island I had in the 4th grade. So Fifefer Island was my nickname. My brother couldn't say my name, Christopher. He'd say Fifefer, and it just became my nickname.
Oh.
So I'm excited about it too, to give Fifefer some more credence. So this is an idea for TikTok. And the TikTok formula that's where the greatest chance of going viral is these days, I think.
True. Yeah.
And something my illustrator and I thought up was having a 15-second video that poses a question like, hey, you think you know economics? And then we pose a question next. And so this is just a rough draft. and then we pose a question and like, what's scarcity, and give like 3 different definitions of what could scarcity be, some funny ones, and then just have the answer in the comments. So like, and a friend told me this, it makes sense. Like if you're just faced with a question or like a little challenge, you're kind of incentivized to read through the question and consider your answer, and, maybe go into the comments to check out what the correct answer is. So we're going to start that up next week, hopefully, and try to do like 1 a day. And
cool.
I'm going to do like the voiceovers, I think, maybe.
And then that'll be, because everybody is on TikTok, it seems like. Not just America as well. Like it hit Asia really hard as well. Mm-hmm. All of the kids here in Japan, I see some videos from Korea as well.
Yeah, it's huge in America. It's like America #1 social app. Like no young people are using Facebook anymore. Not really in America. So it's, TikTok. We'll see what it does for us. I also just want to show off. I got our website up and live today. Big achievement. So this is going to be. This is going to be.
Congrats there. That's big.
What the email sends a link to. So for the educators, for the economists, and it's like strictly kind of like selling to people that would possibly buy the game for their school, for students, for their kids. So an environmental story with a female lead. Learn over 40 economic concepts. Fun game design. 3+ hours of gameplay. So very excited. But I still have to clean this up. Got our team page.
Yeah, but it looks really good already.
Thanks. Yeah,
so far, this is great.
Yeah, just crisp. You know what? I read some Amazon style guide that I saw on Twitter the other day, and it's all about being concise and specific too. Like not having these filler adjectives. Like be specific if you can. Try to get to the point. So, because everyone's attention span's low and low. I'm sure there's only going to be 5 people that have made it this far in the podcast, but thank you to those 5 people. And, I think we need to wrap it up. I feel like we could talk for hours, but I try to keep it under 30 minutes. I'm going to edit this down to 30 minutes, I think.
Everybody's on Discord, and I keep meaning to join your Discord because I'd love to talk to your engineers. Or your dad specifically.
Join our Discord. I just assumed that you were on Discord because you're in the game development industry, and like it seems like every gamer's on Discord, so that's why.
I hear that all the time from other game devs. It's like, are you on Discord? It's like, well, yes, but
I'll send you links to these game servers that I'm in. These game developer servers. It's really interesting.
Yes,
because it's just this whole community, and you have an avatar. You don't have to say your real name, et cetera. But yeah, if you haven't wishlist on Steam yet, please do.
Oh, yes. We'll see that now.
We'll see if our game reaches our deadline of August 16th. And Guy, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm just hoping that this can just be a little bit of a good release, where we get some interest. I've set a goal of 1,000 downloads over like 2 months. It's kind of, I don't know if it's too far out there, but I hope to hit a nerve with this community and our niche. And what's cool about it is that it could be reused every semester if we make it good enough, a good enough package. It doesn't need to have a timestamp on it. And it's also applicable to other countries, other students in other countries that are trying to learn about economics. Often economics is taught in English. Also, from an ESL benefit, learning English, we have the voiceovers now to help with the reading. And I'm excited it's an exciting industry. It's exciting to have a project that you've worked so hard on and try to get excitement behind it and, put yourself out there.
Keep pushing. Just keep up. Like I would say, something that we learned was don't get discouraged. Eventually something will happen. You guys have a cool product and like a product I've never seen before, like an educational video game in economics specifically. I haven't seen that.
And 100% illustrated, like for RPG makers, they've got to, love that I think you told me this, we push the engine to its limits as far as what it's.
I think you have, because I've seen it, and like even the way that the lead character walks or is animated, it was like, wait, are you guys taking 2 like sprite blocks to do that? There's a lot of like little stuff.
Yeah, I mean we have a 9 sprite block, so can walk in any character. And then for every motion there's like 3 different images. I feel like
it looked like it. It looked like it.
Yeah, and our illustrator
when I was just playing around, it was like, wow, this is really cool.
Our illustrators are geniuses. Our lead is really taking the game into her own, and she's a Dungeons and Dragons player, D&D. And I swear, like I'm going to ask people that in the future on their resume or like in an interview, because it's such just a creative tool. Like if you're a kid playing this game or a teenager, and you're forced to just come up with these scenarios on the spot and story arcs and like sudden changes, and you just have to be able to narrate it to a group of people. It's like how so we're in like creative sessions with her, and she's just spitting out all this dialogue, all these story ideas. It's really great to have her on the team. That would be fun.
Keep me posted. I'll join your Discord and thank you, keep in touch.
So great catching up with you. This is why I'm doing the podcast as well, just to catch up with cool people like you. So it's very nice to talk with you, and
it's good to hear
soon.
From you.
Yeah, me and my wife might be coming to your side of the sea sooner.
I'd love to have you guys.
So yeah, it would be great to be back. And good luck with the Olympics there. I hope Tokyo can pull it off.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll see.
It's disappointing that they had to work with so little, but hopefully they can still make it, make it fun. So
that's my sentiments exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Gui Martins. Thank you so much for being on the Fifefer Island Podcast. And until next time.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thank you everyone for listening. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.